Do you want a super quick sewing project that you can do in about 10 minutes? Today I'm going to walk you through how to make these cute fabric corner bookmarks. They're beginner friendly, they're perfect for gifts, and it's a great way to use up your scrap fabric. So let's jump in. To make these bookmarks, what we need is 3 pieces of 4x4 squares. So I'm going to have these little cats with these cherries, and then I'm going to have these purple and blue ones. And then you're also going to need some interfacing if you want them to be rigid. Now you're going to need 1 piece of square interfacing at a 4x4 size, and you're going to need 1 triangle piece that's going to have a 4x4 outer edge here. I used mine to make a second square, so that's why we're making 2 bookmarks. When we're making these corner bookmarks, you want to have your fabric figured out. So I'm going to be using the cat for the inside and outside flaps, and then these little berries are going to be the folded part of my bookmark, sort of the edge that comes over the corner. So I'm going to start to set this up so that we can sew this all together nicely, and hopefully this won't be too complicated. We're going to put our interfacing on our 1 square that's going to be the triangle. We're going to fold it over on top of itself here so that it's in place. I'm actually going to iron this first so that it's got a nice fold in it in the right spot so that this doesn't cause me too much chaos. Okay, so I've quickly ironed this because it was just not cooperating very much for me. And I'm going to just place this triangle in the middle here and fold this up. Now if you have iron-in interfacing, that would work as well. I just have the kind that you sew in, so we're going to work with what we've got. Now, when we're going to be placing our bookmark, you want to kind of have an idea where your cats are to know which way they're going to be hiding or not hiding. So I'm going to have, on this side, my cat's going to be sort of chilling here, and on my back, I'm going to have the cat sort of chilling as well. And he shows up totally on the back side, so that's okay. So we're going to have them this way. I'm going to make sure that they're both on the same side, so if I flip this the wrong way, it's going to look okay. Alright, so we want to have our designs facing inwards, and then we're going to put our interfacing on top of this here. Now, if you're using iron on interfacing, you just want it to be smaller, about 1/4 of an inch smaller, to be inside of your stitch. But if you do not, like you're using the sew-in kind that I have, just cut it the same size and you're going to be sewing through it. Now, we're going to be sewing around the whole outside of this bookmark, but we're going to leave about a 2-inch gap here so that we can flip this later. So I'm going to pin this together, and then I'm going to mark off a side here that's not got all of my pieces together so that I can actually have this nicely sewn together. So I've put in 2 pins here so that I know where I've got my spot to not sew, and I'm just going to sew all the way around, and then we'll be right back. So I'm going to be starting to sew from the edge where I'm going to be finishing. So I'm going to start here and work my way around. I'm actually going to start on this side here so that I've got an edge right before I finish here. And when I'm flipping it around, I'm going to try to make sure to leave my needle in so that it stays where it's supposed to. What fabric would you use to make this bookmark? Let me know. I'm always looking for ideas. I like to do a back stitch at the end so that it stays sealed for me. Now that I've sewn the outer edge of my bookmark, I'm going to cut the corners and I'm going to trim around the edges. I'm going to make sure to leave a little bit of extra fabric here so that this is easier to flip inwards. And I'm simply going to just cut this and make this into a square. If you made this bookmark, comment "bookmark done" so that I can cheer you on. And now we're going to flip this inside out, and we want to make sure that we're flipping the inner 2 layers and not in between the liner and the fabric. Now I like to just use a pencil to poke out the corners, but you can use a poking tool, a crochet hook, chopstick, whatever you kind of have handy. You want to make sure that these corners get out nicely so that they are nice sharp corners for your bookmark. So we have most of our part of our bookmark completed here, and I'm just going to quickly we will need to fold this in here so that we can sew this shut on our next round. And I'm just going to fold these in, but I'm actually going to iron this up quickly so that this is nice and flat as well. So I'm going to make sure that these are in the right spot before I iron this so that I don't have a weird shape later. Okay, now that I've ironed this in and it's all nice and flat, I'm going to quickly sew a seam around the edges so that the bookmark stays nice and closed and has a little bit of a seam. I'm going to be using a dark one on the front and a light one on the back to give it a bit of contrast. And that's it. The corner bookmark is complete. So all we need to do is grab our book and put it in to marker pages. And then you can see it there, and it's easy for opening. Have you ever made a sewing mistake that ruined your project? Tell me your story in the comments. When I was making one of my bookmarks, I didn't pay attention to the number of stitches that I made on the last side before coming into the edge to flip the bookmark around. And you can see in this image here, I actually am quite off on the location of my stitches. I'm about 2 stitches or 3 stitches shy of making this a perfect square. When I was making this, I didn't actually realize that there was an issue with this, and so I just kept going forwards. What I really should have done is I should have stopped here and pulled off the one set of stitches, added a few more on the long side, and then closed it off. But I went ahead and cut this up and flipped this inside out before I realized that there was an actual mistake with the size of my square. To avoid doing this, what you can do is you can actually draw on a square onto your interfacing so that it is the full size that you will be sewing, to make sure that you know where you're sewing and how far your lines should be going. Another thing that you can do is you can actually count your stitches. So on the one side, if you have 43 stitches, you would count on the other side 43 stitches so that they would be even. This becomes more difficult the larger the size of your square. So for example, with a 4-inch square, there's quite a lot of stitches, so it can become a little bit challenging to count, especially if you're sewing quickly. Since I didn't notice that I had made a mistake until farther on into the project, I carried on making this bookmark as it was. The one thing that you can see when I finalize the bookmark is that it is not a perfect square, but seeing as the imperfect portion of the square will be hidden behind the pages of my book, this still does work as a bookmark, but it is a learning lesson so that it doesn't happen in the future. So either mark off your square in ink or a pencil on your interfacing so that you know exactly where to sew, or count your stitches to avoid this. Thanks so much for crafting with me today. If you've enjoyed making this corner bookmark, I've got another project that you'll love. Watch this video where I teach you how to sew a standard bookmark. This is another great project for using up scraps and for giving as a gift. If you love simple crafting projects that you can do in little pockets of time, be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss the next video. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting!